Welcome to the Executive Outlook. Today, we are honored to have Noel, Chief Technology and Transformation Officer at Repurpose IT, and one of the Australia's most recognized digital leader, and among the CIO 50 2025 top 10 and CSO 30 2025. With over 25 years of experience driving innovation across healthcare enterprise solution, he has led award-winning transformations that modernize systems and unlock the AI-driven insights. Welcome to the Executive Hour.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on.
So I'm very excited to hear your journey and how you have reached to the Chief Technology and Transformation.
Yeah, it's an interesting journey. When I started off my career, I thought I wanted to be a developer. That's kind of what I was looking for as a role. It was a little bit tough when I came out of uni. Economic conditions weren't good. It was tough to find roles, and I applied for an experienced developer role because I was really trying to get a role. And the owner of the business, they were a newish startup business in the fintech sector, and he said to me, no, he rang me up, he said, no, obviously you don't have the experience for this role, but I've got this dual role where you'll support my lead developer, so you do development, but you'll also take on the help desk network support, that sort of ICT support side. And of course I jumped at the chance, and I grew with that business and learnt, and they threw things at me that really someone straight out of uni shouldn't have been dealing with. But it was great. It was great learning. And the result of that was as the business grew, I had to decide, am I going down the development path or am I going down the IT support networking side of it? And I found out that actually I much preferred the IT support bit and the whole networking and going that way. I found it was a little bit more restrictive being stuck behind a computer doing what I thought would be exciting development, but a lot of it was bug fixes and that sort of thing. So that then sent me off on a different path, and then I went through a few roles with that. One of them after that one was to go to Victorian Breast Screen. I was their inaugural IT person, 8 sites, looking after it. I left after 9 months. I got bored. It wasn't technically challenging. I'd just come from this incredibly challenging role where they gave me lots of things that I had to learn and I didn't know, and now I was in a role that actually was a bit too simple for me. A bit busy, and they really looked after me, but simplistic. So then I went to a systems integration company and got to work with big projects for BHP. They were BHP Billiton, now BHP Petroleum. It was a big 6-month project. I got to work with Australian Grand Prix, with Shell, did projects for some marketing companies, financial company. It was a big range of things. I got lots of projects, and so that was really good. That was challenging. I got to really lift, my experience level. Then I got headhunted back to the original company that I ever worked for. They'd been bought out by a big American company, a lot more money, wanted to do a lot more work, and they headhunted me back. And I said, I'll come back, but only if I get ready for leadership, if you will help prepare me and mentor me and give me an opportunity. And that's what they did. I got mentored by the IT manager, and when the opportunity happened, as the company continued to grow, we ended up a regional head of IT role. Again, felt a little bit big for me, but the opportunity presented itself. I put my hand up to say I want to give that a go. They gave me the opportunity, and after 6 months just gave me the permanent role. And then that was a really highly technical, it was a software development company, so doing software for the finance sector, and obviously I got a lot of learnings out of that over 15 odd years or something. And then I decided I should do an MBA. I thought the problem with IT is we don't think enough about the business. And if we really want to make impact, we need to understand the business. And if we want to talk the business language and understand it, I thought I should do an MBA. It was going to be a master's, right? And I thought, well, instead of master's in tech and just get better at tech, why don't I get better at business? And I had run a few little small businesses myself, so I thought it might be a good opportunity. So I did the MBA, executive MBA. It was great, but then I felt I didn't have enough practical experience in business. So I went and bought a cardboard box manufacturing business. Never done it before. Threw myself in the deep end and learnt a whole lot about business. When it's you on the end of the profit and loss, and it personally impacts you, you do tend to learn a lot. So, I learned every part of that business, the marketing, the sales, the finance. Of course, you across everything went to your own business. And over a 3-year period, transformed that business through a combination of using technology and also changing the business model and doing some consolidation, that sort of thing, building, getting into a new factory, bringing on some different product lines. It was a real amalgam of technology and business learning, so that in the end I got approached by a few companies wanting to buy us, sold out to a company listed on the stock exchange. So it was a nice exit. It was a good way to leave. But took all those learnings and decided that I should go use them now that, at that point I was thinking I really need to do something for the benefit of the community, and that's what got me into healthcare. And I had 2 roles in healthcare, 6 years each. Those roles were executive technology roles. They were both inaugural roles where they needed someone to come in and set the strategy and do the transformation, use the tech. I think everyone had realized by that stage that technology was not just keeping the lights on. We should really use it to drive a business forward. And I think what appealed to those organizations was I had a business background, having run a successful business that I'd exited, an MBA, so they knew I had the theory behind it. And then obviously I had a lot of technology experience. And so that led me through those roles and then eventually into my current role at Repurpose It, which is a great role. Again, another inaugural role, technology transformation officer for a business that's looking to grow rapidly and has grown rapidly. I mean, they're 7.5, 8 years old, private equity backed. It's certainly a business that's looking to transform. It's got transformation in my title, and so it's an exciting place to be, to do that now.
Great to know. Thank you so much for sharing your journey. So as a technology and transformation leader, where do you start? Like, what's the first thing you look at before beginning any digital transformation?
There's a few things, because, you kind of walk in the door and you're looking at a few things at once. It's just core ICT operations. It's not transformation, but if you don't have that right, you don't have the things you need to build on. To do transformation, you need a network that's running well. You need people who, when they turn on their PC, it works. They don't have slowness issues. They don't have connectivity problems. It's just the fundamentals, and they need to, you're going to try to drive a transformation, right? So to do that, you're going to need people to come with you on the journey, support you. They're not going to do that if they think I'll log a help desk ticket and 3 months later you haven't fixed my problem. So while it's not a transformation thing, you need to transform the ICT operations so that you've got a good foundation. The business now believes in you. And when you layer on those other transformational pieces, they're with you. They're like, yeah, because day to day it all works for me. I'm really happy. Noel's bringing us something else now. Let's give it a go, because it's, you've proven that you could deliver. So we're always starting a bit of work on that, while at the same time, I'm always looking to see what the business problems and opportunities. It's really talk to the business, find out what they need, work out where the money is. I mean, it's all about money, right? We're reducing costs, trying to increase revenue, profitability in the middle of all that. So I'm always just trying to follow the train to see where can the impact be greatest. Because obviously there's a lot to do in any business, but you're trying to prioritize the bit that's truly transformational. And that is, have we got revenue leakage somewhere? We got inefficient processes that we could actually use data to help inform how to improve them, but we just don't have that data, or we're not using it for that. I mean, you're just looking for the parts to help you get the business to perform better. It really is a business question. Just leave the technology to the side and understand the business. When you understand what those problems are and what the opportunities for improvement are, then you can design a transformation strategy. And once you've kind of got the strategy, then you work out the tech that's going to drive the strategy. I mean, you need to work it out in that order, I think, because there's obviously multiple ways to do these things. So that's typically what I do. But one of the things I'm also looking at, like while you're working these things out, is the data. Because more and more, and I didn't realize this enough early in my career, and maybe we didn't have the quality of data tooling and understanding we have now, but if I want to do any transformation in any business, it's always going to come down to data. We're going to use that data to do reporting to inform the way that people can manage the business better. It might be operational decisions. They need data to inform those. It could be that we're trying to improve strategically, so we need the data to inform strategic thinking. We might be using the data to do alerting so that we're picking up problems early, and so you're intervening quickly. But there's always a data element to it. And so one of the early things I do is try to have a look at what data sources do we currently have. Have we got a data lake? If we do, which of those data sources are we pulling into that data lake or data warehouse, whatever they might have? I'm trying to work out how we have that foundational piece, but what do we need to pull in? And there's always a limit to what's in the underlying core systems. So then it's what data would be useful that we're not capturing in those systems we've got, because they've been coded for a purpose, and that purpose might not capture some information that actually we would find useful. An example might be in the marketing space, where they're busy running their marketing campaigns and they've got systems for that, but what they're not doing is they're not capturing what the marketing campaign turns into in terms of success. How many phone calls did we get from that marketing campaign, or emails, or how many bookings did we get, depending on what you're offering. You want to work out, well, how do I capture the data that's missing? So if we're not capturing the phone call, how many phone calls are we getting and why did they call us, then you need to capture that and you add that and enrich your data. So always trying to work out what those pieces are. The table's useful for that, I find, just to what's all our data sources? What kind of information do we think we need to answer the problems and the opportunities that the business has told you? And there you go. Okay, I can see where the gap is. Then how do we get that data? I mean, we're doing it right now here. We've got a whole lot of equipment. We've got big plant running. We've got mobile equipment. We've got trucks. And then we just have people. And there's like a whole lot of data. And we're just saying, let's pull all of that together, and then we've got a really good, rich set of data to go forward with. But the quality of that is the other thing you're always questioning. I always do anyway when you start. So we've got data. We say we're going to use it, but how do we know the quality of that data is good? Is it usable? Is it, have we got controls around the way that people are entering the data? Do we have mandatory fields that are getting filled in, or have we got data with a whole bunch of gaps in it because people don't want to enter all the fields on the form and they skip some, and now your data is less useful? I mean, those things are good to know early on. You can't fix what you haven't got already, but what you can do going forward is make sure you're capturing all the bits of data that you need by enforcing the data entry of those. Those are all bits that I know it's important to get that early, because you start fixing that, and then when you're doing your other bigger transformational bits, you've got a good foundation with your data. And I mean, it's even more important now with AI and the ability to do predictive analytics.
Absolutely right. Data is a foundation and can drive the strategic business in the right way. Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts over there. So I have a question. Like, you have some project, right, which you have thought to transform it. And let's take an example of capturing of data. So how do you estimate the timelines? Okay, this is the outcome which we need to achieve. How much estimation and control over the cost you have, and then how to decide that you have to build in-house or buying external partners. So how do you make such decisions?
It is a bit of a difficult one, right? Because it can be hard to actually put a costing on that. I mean, the first thing I do is see who I've got working for me already and the capability of the people I have, and depending how many I've got, say, in the data area, will impact my decision on, can I do this internally? Do I need to go get an external partner to maybe help us start that off? And obviously be looking at the market to see, is there already something there? It's always good if someone's already built something useful and we're not having to invest. So there is that whole initial piece to work out what we think is the best way to do it. And I'm all for buying it if someone's already got a good solution that's going to work and we don't have to go and reinvent that wheel. That's often a cheaper way to do it. But typically I find you don't have quite enough resource to do transformational pieces alone, because your team might not have all of the skills needed. So often what it is a bit of a hybrid of, you've got existing people, you want them to come up to speed, you go to the external experts, get them to help kickstart the early stages of the project, but always ensure that they're giving some lessons back, the feedback back to your people so your people are learning, and then in the end you will take that project over. So you can cost up what it costs to get an external person or company to do what I would call the kickoff stage, go and do a detailed spec on what you want, get the statement of work from the company that's going to partner with you. So you're very clear on what they're going to deliver, and we get a cost for that. So then we know what that will cost. And the idea is that your own people will learn on that journey, and then they'll take off as a over at the end as a lower cost option once you've had the kickoff. But knowing the complete cost of a data project, I think, and it can be difficult when you've got partners, because sometimes some of your data sources might be reliant on other external people. So you might want to pull data from one of your vendors. Maybe it's people who you buy the trucks from. Maybe it's from Volvo or something, and you're wanting to pull data from there. And maybe there isn't a connectivity ability at the moment, but you can get one created. But now we're relying on them. That can throw you out a little bit on your budget, and that can be a little bit hard. So I think typically what we try to do is make sure we've got the access to all the data we need, so that then when we go to engage with someone externally to provide assistance, we know that we're not going to chew up time waiting for the access to the data. And if you do that, then it's a bit easier to know what your cost will be, because you're not going to have to keep extending the project. It's like it's going to be this many weeks or this many months of your partner engaged with you, and you know that they're not going to wait for the data because you've already got it. So like, it's really, if you've got your foundations right, then by the time you get your partner, it should be a relatively fixed cost. That's pretty much the way I've tried to do it. But it is difficult. I don't think IT projects are easy to completely cost out in advance. And you almost really need to say that to the board, to the CEO, etc., that we're going to have to do this in stages. We can cost the stage. The stages should be around a deliverable that gives some value. And the next stage, we'll have to cost that when we go to do the next stage. Like, I don't think you can plan 3 years down the track on costings. You'll probably not quite hit the mark.
Because you have worked on so many projects. So can you share some of the experiences and the key lessons you have learned from them?
I've got this theory now, and people typically like it. I think one of my big learnings is every time it comes to one of these projects, whether it's a data project or you're creating a system to do something, the business often doesn't really understand that. Like, you talk about it and you might say, I'm going to put in a CRM and then we're going to, pull the data and do some alerting for you and some nice dashboards. And they're like, yeah, I kind of get that. But they don't know the ins and outs of that. And when you would start the project, you would obviously do a spec and you would get the business to give their business requirements and you would get them to sign off on it. And then you would start building it. And in the old waterfall method, you'd go and create the whole thing and then we'd show it to them. And then the business would say, oh, that's not what I thought it would be. And so, that's a problem. We obviously get around that a bit with agile development. So we're kind of chunking it up into pieces and we can show them along the way. But my theory is what I call display home. And I don't know if this correlates to all of the world, but certainly in Australia, if you want to go build a house from a volume builder, they'll have their particular plans. You look at their plans online, you think that looks pretty nice. It's 3 bedrooms, got 2 lounge rooms, X number of toilets and a kitchen. But you can go to a display village where they've already got some built. And when people walk into a display home, they realise it's got 3 bedrooms, but actually they're all small and I wanted a bigger bedroom. Or that kitchen is not what I thought it would be from looking at the plan. So the whole point of it is that people need to see what you're going to build. Otherwise, they don't really understand it. They think they do, because just like looking at a plan of a house, you go, I understand that. It's got a kitchen and 3 bedrooms, a couple of lounge rooms, etc. That all makes sense. But then when you go and they see the real one, it doesn't match up to what they expected to get. So the only way to get around that is to either do a small proof of concept. So you partially build something, they can see it, then they get a better idea of what it is, or you wireframe it or something and have something that you can step them through what it's going to look like. Or what I find now in the age of AI is incredibly easy to go use one of these vibe coding tools and just tell it what you want, and it will create a system that's not going to be production ready typically, because they do have some trouble, those vibe coding tools. but they will create something that someone can sit down and use. They can go through screens. They can get a feel for it. They're a really quick way to generate something that people can look at. My learning is that it's not the business user's fault, but the wording doesn't often correlate to then what gets delivered. So they've signed off on a requirements document and the spec, but when you go to build, it's not what they perceived it to be. So you have to find a way early on to let them get their hands on something to understand what it's going to look like. And then the light bulbs go off in their head, and then they will come up with the things that didn't realize you could do that. Or that makes me think I need to change that because I could do this. It's often that they may not understand the full capabilities of what we could do for them. And it's certainly the case in data as much as anything else. They don't maybe realize just how much we can pull together and present it in different ways that can be useful. So if we show them before we go and do the full build, we're more likely to get early input that we can then finalize a true specification for the build. So before we've done a lot of work, we've actually got the feedback early. And then what I'm always saying then is, if you come up with the change midway through and you're saying that's not right, that's not a bug because you've already signed off on the specification. So now that's an enhancement, and we do the enhancements later. Obviously, you might do small changes through a project, but you want to push out any major enhancements to later. But make sure we're calling them enhancements, not bugs, because you've given them multiple opportunities to tell you what they want. Now, if they want to completely change it, it's not a bug. We're delivering what they've asked for. It's an enhancement. And I think that has proven to be a more effective way to engage with people on projects. Otherwise, you get to the end and you have this big problem with it. It's not meeting my needs. That's not what I wanted. It's not what I thought I'd have. So you really got to get in early so you don't get that problem at the end.
Can you tell me what are your favorite tools, platforms, or methodologies which you use in most of your projects?
It's one of those interesting ones. I've become a fan of the Microsoft tech stack. The reason I'm quite fond of it is, well, because it's getting quite simple to use. And while it tends to not be the best in terms of maybe depth of capabilities in the different components, when you put it together, it's a very capable, simple system. I mean, it's well integrated, typically. These days, even better because of the whole AI component. Like, you've got that really good ability to use the AI in it. But if we think about the way Microsoft have, I could get a coder, I can get a developer who's a Microsoft developer, effectively, Power Platform developer, and then they can use multiple parts of the Microsoft tech stack to develop. I don't have to go and get different developers. That one developer actually, because they know how to use the Microsoft system, can do the different things. They can go and easily set up agents for us over here. They can use Power BI over here. They can do a bit of dynamics coding there. They can create a website. There's a platform there which enables them, and then it's supported by, the GitHub Copilot type stuff, bit of AI to help. And I just find that quite good. It's a nice way to reduce your sprawl of systems and try to bring them back to a single system that under that system is unified data effectively. So if you think you've got say you use Microsoft for your ERP, and maybe we've got a HR component and we've got the finance components, and, we capture procurement under that. The more you're capturing, it sits nicely in that Microsoft environment as a data source without you having to go and try to pull that together separately. It's already sitting there. And so I found that quite a useful way to quickly bring you forward rather than having very disparate systems and you're trying to pull them into some sort of data environment and then use it. So that strangely has become my favorite method. It wasn't in the past, and I thought Microsoft were behind, not as advanced as they needed to be, but they've come leaps and bounds in many of the systems. Dynamics platform's much better. Their data fabric stuff, I think, is going really well. And if you look at it, they're very good now at integrating with other third parties. Have Azure Databricks, for instance, and so you get some functionality there using a third-party product, but you've got the underlying piece that is the Microsoft. So I think they're now a different player to what they were years ago and pretty good to use.
Databricks is also my favorite one. Quite a time I use this.
Yeah, they're very good, I think. It works well. You can find lots of training materials so people can get up to speed on it easily. It's more easy to find partners who can help you, support you with it. And it's easier to go to market and find people who can come and do the work. Some other systems is a bit harder to find. There's a smaller market of people who can do it. And so, that's a great help if what you're trying to do is transform and still keep your budget under control.
All right. So can you share some of the case studies you have solved while you are working with technology and transformation?
Yeah. So I think if I go to my last one, which was in healthcare, we were building out what we call the CRM because people understand CRM, but really it was much more. It was really like an enterprise system. What we were trying to do was in healthcare, in some parts of healthcare, there's multiple systems under there. So at my previous workplace, CTTO Health, we had a system for the doctors, for the GPs visits. We had a different system for allied health. We had a different system if you're allied health, but you're under what we would call NDIS funding in Australia. It's a different funding stream or some of the aged care funding. And then we had a different system for dental. And so a client could end up in a number of different systems and they were treated as a medical client for the doctors. They were an allied health client. They were an NDIS client. They were a dental client. They weren't a client of DPV Health as a whole. I mean, they were, but the separation of the data meant that you couldn't easily link that together for holistic care. And the whole concept was we built it on Microsoft and then built the Dynamics layer on top was to pull the data up. And so if you rang up to book a service in, the person answering your call no longer needed to be the medical, dental, allied health person. Whoever answered that call could see all of that. They could see what services you were getting, that you were a client of all of that, right? They knew what clinicians you were seeing. They knew what other appointments you had. So if you rang up and you already had a doctor's appointment, but now you wanted an allied health appointment, they could see you already had a doctor's appointment and that you wanted an allied health appointment. And they could go, okay, can I match up? Maybe they couldn't, maybe they could, can I match up on the same day appointment? So it was really pulling all that together to deliver a better outcome for the client, but also then what it did was it gave us a lot more data internally to see the connection between the different services and the clients, and then you could see where there might be a gap. If someone had a particular thing like diabetes, we know there's certain services that ideally a client would have. They might need some dietary, they might need some dietetics. Obviously, they've got the GP. There's a bunch of things that you go, okay, that would be supportive of the client. Now, I can see the client's got diabetes, but they're not coming to us for some of the other services. So that's an opportunity to extend that. You could then look to share information between different clinician types. So, yeah, it was a whole layer to pull together the data and then put some workflows across it so that we could do some smarts on it. One of the things we did a pilot of was a predictive model for appointments. So we had a lot of clients who would fail to attend an appointment. Obviously, that impacts. You've got a clinician there. You've got an appointment booked. They're waiting for someone to come. Person doesn't arrive. We've got wait lists because we would tend to deal with groups of people who were disadvantaged. And so we're really trying to get through those. And so if someone didn't turn up, it meant someone else on the wait list didn't get an opportunity to come. So you said, well, how do we do this? What you will find in healthcare is you offer someone a healthcare appointment. They'll say, okay, no worries. So come on Tuesday, 9:00 in the morning. They'll say, fine, I'll take that appointment. Come. They won't tell you that actually that's going to be really difficult on Tuesday because they won't have the car Tuesday because their partner's taking the car to work or that they've got to drop some children off or whatever it might be. They'll just tend to take it. And so the idea of the predictive model was for it to work out from all of the data across the service types, their location, their age, it could be their gender, a whole lot of things came into it depending, and it would put all this together and we got to about 91% accuracy to be able to tell you what appointments were the best to offer people. So the idea was to try to offer them an appointment they're most likely to attend rather than offering an appointment, them say yes, and it was one that was 20% or less chance of attending. We should offer them the one that's 80% plus chance of attending. So there was a whole lot of work in that. And so you can just see how capturing all of the data then informs the AI predictive model. And then the AI predictive model had an impact on us being able to lower fail to attend rates. And the more you lower fail to attend rates, the more you lower your wait list and the more productive your organisation is. And obviously you tied the funding, etc. So, your revenues are protected, wait times are come down, people are getting service quicker who need it. It just overall is a big benefit. And we use data and different reporting extensively to go from about 25% fail to attend rate down to about 10, 11, depending on the service. So it's a significant positive impact, like a real impact for the business that improves the way that we operated.
That's amazing. And data-driven analytics is always helpful. And when you measure that and you run the transformative project, like you shared the case study, and the outcome when it's going to produce, that is something we feel that, okay, we have done something.
Yes,
right?
Absolutely. And I mean, that's really what we're trying to do, isn't it? We're trying to deliver a true business impact. And that impact in that case, it was helping the clients, it was helping the clinicians, it was helping the business overall to be sustainable. But it's often that way where we can. But I think you really nailed it. You kind of need to have the measurement before you do it and then the measurement after so that you know that you've made an improvement and what level of improvement that is. And the minute you do that, then of course the business reinvests in you doing more of that kind of work because they can see the value in it. I find it very interesting. We're really moving now from the old school method of once a month reporting on different targets that businesses have, business units reporting at the end of a month and finding out they missed targets. So now where we can be much more interactive and have that data in the hands of the managers, the team leaders, etc., in real time or as near to real time as possible so that on a daily basis they can see how they're tracking against the target that they've got set for the month and then take corrective action. So instead of waiting to the end of the month and going, we missed the target, they know they're going to miss and then they can try to take corrective action, make fixes. So by the end of the month, even if they still miss, they're not going to miss by as much, but hopefully they've actually taken the sort of action they need so that they hit or exceed the target that was set. And I think that ability for people to see what's going on in that real time or near real time really drives that ability. Otherwise, end of the month and it's a few days after the end of the month. So you're now into a new month and you're probably making mistakes again. It is not a very useful way to work, but luckily we all seem to be shifting to this interactive method of looking at it now.
All right. Thank you so much for sharing the remarkable insights and your leadership. Your journey from healthcare and your vision for building the technology is really impacting and driving the real world. Thank you so much. And it's so good that you are the part of the executive outlook.
Thank you very much for having me on it. And I hope that some of the stuff I shared was useful for people. Yeah, I've enjoyed being on this podcast. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.